Tonight on PhillyCAM Voices, businesses are trying to bounce back from the crushing weight of COVID-19 pandemic. We take a look at Philadelphia's struggling hotel industry. We'll show you how volunteers from the fashion industry are using their sewing skills to make masks. Will it stay or will it go? The fate of the controversial Christopher Columbus statue in South Philadelphia's Marconi Park. Plus, how abandoned railroad tracks have been transferred into a beautiful greenscape for neighbors to enjoy. Good evening. Thank you for tuning into PhillyCAM Voices. I'm your host, Amanda Johnson. Businesses are slowly reopening after being closed for months because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Karen Walker takes a look at Philadelphia's struggling hotel industries and what it will take to get guests to return.
Restaurants and small businesses have suffered a huge financial blow due to the COVID 19 pandemic. But many may not realize how Philadelphia's hotel industry has been shaken without guests to fill rooms, dine at hotel restaurants, or book event venues.
I'm very fortunate to be one of the few folks in the hotel industry to be still working. And a lot of my friends and colleagues have been laid off or furloughed.
Brian Follett is a hospitality supplier who has been keeping in touch with clients from home. He is a sales manager at the Chubb Hotel and Conference Center in Lafayette Hills.
95% of our business is group business, and groups aren't meeting. So our hotel is closed, hoping to reopen in July or possibly August.
It's devastated the industry, obviously.
Ira Rosen is an associate professor with Temple University's School of Sports, Tourism, and Hospitality Management. He teaches several event management courses and is the program director for the school's award-winning Event Leadership Executive Certificate Program.
Colleagues and graduates, and both recent graduates and graduates from years ago are kind of looking at, can I afford to stay in this industry? Whether it's a hotel person, a sports person, an events person, a restaurant person, it has universally devastated many industries, certainly. But I think ours will be in many ways the slowest to recover because we're in the business of putting groups of people together.
Temple University is monitoring how its students are handling the fallout from the pandemic.
It's been frustrating for a lot of certainly recent graduates and graduates from a couple years ago. We're reevaluating what they're doing, but it's going to slowly get better. It's just a matter of how long each individual can hang on to what they're doing.
Rosen believes the next step for the industry will be to learn new skills and try new things.
Okay, so today we're not doing live events. What are we doing tomorrow? Are they hybrid events? Are they virtual events? What can I do to be ready for whatever happens?
We've done everything virtual. We just had a retreat, which we usually do over a 2.5 day span in person, and it's early in the morning and goes into the evening for 2.5 days. Which we had to do virtually, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, and it was an adjustment.
And taking the necessary safety precautions for reopening will be key.
I think we need to make sure that when we do come back, we're coming back deliberately and safely, and making sure that our guests and our visitors and our customers feel comfortable coming to our facilities, to our restaurants, to our hotels, to our conference centers. Or they won't come back,
I'm Karen Walker, reporting for PhillyCAM Voices.
Volunteers from the fashion industry have put their sewing machines into high gear to make masks during the pandemic. So far, they've sewn more than 16,000 masks. Joe Kane has more on the group, Cover Aid PHL.
I got to know a little bit about you because I followed your emails, and I
Right.
went to your blog, and I read some of your books, and I was amazed. You're like, I can't even put you into a category. I can't give you a title. You're just a go getter. Um, I understand that you have a video, and it's on Facebook. Oh no, it's on YouTube. I'm sorry, it's on
Yes.
YouTube, and it deals with fabric mask making. Is that correct?
Yes, that is with Cover A PHL. This is a organized group of volunteers started by people that are in the fashion industry, and others volunteered as well. And the video shows how to use mass production techniques in your home to make these masks. This is a wonderful organization. We've provided over, well, thousands, I don't know exactly the number, of masks to the medical profession. This has all been approved by the medical profession before we did this. And I was reluctant to make masks until I found out about this from Alyssa Bloom, who I think sort of heads this up. She's been very, very active with the fashion incubator here in Philadelphia. She's been a wonderful inspiration, and she's helped so much with Philadelphia. And there are other people also involved with this. For instance, Anne Millman, who resuscitated the Philadelphia chapter of the International Fashion Group, to which I belong. And another person that I'm working directly with is Kathy Coho, who works at the Perlman Museum. There are others that are listed up on their website. I don't know all their names because I'm primarily making masks as fast as possible. And so if I stay off the net, I get more sewing done. And I think that's where I need to be right now.
How many are you making masks at your home?
Yes.
How many do you do per day, roughly?
Well, I'd rather say per minute, because that's a better way. Because per day, I'm interrupted with first one thing and then another, like cooking and washing clothes and things like that. But I have figured out that I can complete a mask, and this is mass production techniques that I'm using. So I'm not cutting one and sewing it and then cutting another and sewing it. I am cutting a whole group and then sewing using mass production and I have a semi-industrial machine. So I have figured out that I think it takes me, and this is an approximation, I can't really time it exactly, but I would say 10 minutes per mask total, including cutting.
Including cutting?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Wow. So do you have to go and buy the fabric, or do they help you with the fabric?
Well, Kathy Coho sent me over some, but I bought most of it. But I see this as a moral obligation. These people in the medical profession, if I were to get sick, they would do far more for me than I'm doing for them. And I have the skills, and I don't really have to worry about spending some money on fabric. It's my contribution. I feel that this is something I should do.
That's wonderfully put. Wonderfully put.
Well, they do it for me. I mean, if I got sick, granted they would be paid, but what's pay compared to risking your life? And that's what they would be doing. I'm not risking my life. I'm safe at home making some little masks. That's all.
Punching up your name, actually, it'd be Laura Hoffman and YouTube, and that will bring you to the tutorial that Laurel does a wonderful job, absolutely tremendous job.
Thank you. I gotta give credit to my son because he's the one that did the video. I know nothing about making videos.
Well, he did a great job.
Mask, that's all. And I happen to love to sew. I find this a lot of fun. I mean, I'm sorry we're in this situation.
Laurel, I'm going to close out with thanking you. Thank you very, very much for coming on to the interview.
I love being part of a team, and that's what we are. We're a team.
Thanks for watching. We at PhillyCAM News hope to see you all real soon. And remember to wear your mask. The life you save may just be your own. If you have a fever, cough, shortness of breath, and fatigue, call 267-491-5870 to get tested. If you're over 50,
healthcare worker, or first responder, you're first to get tested.
The former railroad tracks have been transformed into a beautiful park in Philadelphia's Callowhill Hill neighborhood. Jordan Kucharski shows us how people are enjoying the green space.
The Rail Park is one of the newest green spaces in the city of Philadelphia. The park sits on a 3/4 mile long section of abandoned railway that stretches through the Callowhill Hill neighborhood, providing some much needed green space to the formerly industrial area.
This neighborhood, before this park was built, had zero green space. And most people who live in this neighborhood, they live in converted factories. So they don't have any kind of backyard. People use the park in many ways, from just passive enjoyment, sitting, reading a book, to having a meal up here, to people run here, people do yoga, exercise. This is a neighborhood spot, green space to hang out.
Nonprofit group Friends of the Rail Park are the minds behind the park, overseeing its creation, funding, and programming.
Our first year and a half after the park opened, we've had a lot of programming, very successful programming. And probably the last big event we had was our second annual Lunar Year celebration, which was in February. And we've had dance performances, Ballet X performed here once, music performances, all kinds of events. And we had a lot more things planned, and then the pandemic hit. We still want people to use the park, and people are still using it, but we are encouraging people to social distance and wear masks when they can't social distance. And we are thinking of new ways to do programming in light of the pandemic.
The Rail Park is located in the Callowhill Hill neighborhood, running from 11th and Callowhill Hill to Broad and Noble, with future expansions planned to the north into the Poplar neighborhood and to the west, following the river towards Brewery Town. The current section of the park, known as Phase 1, broke ground in 2016 and was opened to the public 2 years later.
For a while, I would say my favorite thing was just the fact that we got it done, even this small section. But the fact that it's here and that it's used and loved and well used, and that it's just the beginning, it's just the beginning, and we want to do more, but it's here.
The park's website, therailpark.org, contains information on news, upcoming events, and how to get involved with the project.
We want people to be involved, stay in touch, and come and enjoy the park.
I'm Jordan Kuharski, reporting for PhillyCAM Voices.
Our in-guest studio today is Melba. She identifies herself as Chola. It's a person who is Native American and multiracial. Melba is an artist and activist who works focused on decolonization and the abolition of prison industrial complex. She joins us tonight. Talk to us about the tensions surrounding the Columbus statue in South Philadelphia. Welcome, Melba.
Hi, hello.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you as well for inviting.
Now, over 32 years ago, you migrated to the United States. Where did you migrate from?
From the country Chile of South America. The native or indigenous name would be Gulumapo. and particularly from the city of Alimapo, which is the central region of Chile.
Awesome. Well, first, I want to say thank you for your service. I see that you're the co founder of the Indigenous Peoples Day Philadelphia. Tell us a little bit about that.
We started in 2017, a group of native from various different regions from the Caribbean, from this North America, as well from Central America. And our focus was to figure out how to uplift the voices of the Lenni Lenape tribes that are here in Lenapehoking, as well across the different parts of the United States, because they're also in a diaspora, as well as bridging the gap about the history about the indigenous Caribbeans, particularly the Arawaks or Taino descent, who live here in New York, because a lot of people from the Caribbean, in particular of like Boricuas and Puerto Ricanos, are here. It's like one of the largest. They have one of the largest, populations who lives within the United States. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, we thank you, and I'm sure they appreciate the support and the service and all that you guys are doing for that. Now, let's get to the heart of this. Could you give us a little bit of context in regard to the tension surrounding the Columbus statue in South Philadelphia?
Well, my understanding that first of all that this long history about the tension with Christopher Columbus is not just particular to the city of Philadelphia. It's something that has been going on across the entire country. In 1992, the celebration of from one side, it was a celebration of the discovery of the Americas. Counter to that, there was an indigenous uprising, not only to the United States, but all across the continent, North and South America, to sort of demystify the history of that narrative that has been perpetrated and mistakenly, I would say, used against indigenous communities, First Nations, pueblos originarios. So started also here in the United States, in various cities, in Berkeley, Oakland, and the East Coast, Colorado, and then also like in South Dakota, they started instituting like Native American Day instead of Columbus. And so it has been a long history of like trying to replace that legacy. And along with that has been about removing the Christopher Columbus monuments. So now we're in 2020, and we're like in this moment of I would say uprising in some level, because because of the Black Lives Matter brought attention not only to settlers' monuments, but also from the Confederacy. So that also, I would say, gave impetus for the Native community to also continue this discourse, and that's why you see monuments of Christopher Columbus being torn down across different regions of the country. So now, why Marconi? Well, there's like two monuments that represents Christopher Columbus. One at the Marconi, and also at the Penn's Landing. As well as there's like controversial issues around like the history of the boulevard. That part of it was recall as Columbus, and then the other part is Delaware, and that's like a long, battle that has been going on with the Native American and within like the Italian American community, who has a prominent presence in political presence also of in the city. So now why Marconi? Well, people also Italian Americans who are aware of the myth of Christopher Columbus and who are also interested in changing that are standing up, as well as the African American community and other communities who are, I would say, are standing up with Native American to, address this historical moment that not only impacted the Taino and the Boricuas in significant ways, because they instituted, like sex trafficking, enslavement of the indigenous communities, but it also ties to the history of the transatlantic later, as we know our history of the Americas. So we have to pay attention to that part of our history that is oftentimes overlooked. And Philadelphia, by the way, something I didn't mention, but we're in Lenapehoking, part of Lenapehoking, which is Lenape territory. And even the Lenape, we have to make a correlation, a connection between how they were removed from the city, or this territory, all the way to the west. Even though that there's certain, there was some kind of relationship with Penn, William Penn, but that is, I would say, is contested, because it's a history that there was a lot of misunderstandings, and definitely the territory, from the perspective of William Penn and their family, was to actually purchase the territory, but there's historical documents that testifies that it was on the contrary. There was a lot of kind of maneuver to actually take the land of the Lenape, and it became what became historically the walking purchase, of that period. So we have to think about all of that context to why now we're kind of like demanding that these kinds of monuments need to be tear down, but also think about it, how we can not only hide it, that history. I hope that the art commission and the city will stand on figure out how to bring Native American history that also involve this narrative of this, all the way up to the present, because people need to know that there's living, breathing people like myself and other people who are Native and who were mistakenly named as Indios. Of course, in the North, Indios has been a sense of pride or Indian, even across it is a derogatory, and because it erases the who as people as cultural. No, it's not just how we look, but it's also our culture, it's our languages, and like myself, and this is why I also relate to the Lenape and also the Tainos, is because we come from territories impacted very heavily by the invasion of the European. In the case of my country, it was the Spanish, also the Spanish for the Boricuas, and also for the Lenape, it was the English, Dutch, and then so on, And then then we have to think about it, how settler colonialism took place, and
awesome.
This is where we're at.
That was a great history lesson. So, because everybody don't understand, everybody don't get it, can you just kind of give us an image that, or just a thought that when you see the statue, what are you thinking? What do the people think? Especially those who are saying this is controversial. What are some of the thoughts or things that they're dealing with or going through, just to kind of give people an understanding or a reflection of what the tension's about?
Well, I would say across the board within Native communities, not only within the North, but also, people from Mexico, from Central America, all the way to the South. Christopher Columbus Monument represents our genocide, and not only physically, but also culturally. So we have to also grasp that we were kind of like part of ourselves were taken away, like let's say language, for example, it's so important. Now there's a indigenous survival and an indigenous, kind of like pride that takes a lot of, I would say work, to preserve because we're countering, we live already in this mixed society. The other part of it is that it represents this doctrine of discovery, and which is really like how Christians of the time saw our territory as a place where if they were not Christians, they can take it over. So they didn't see us also as humans. So this is very important, and that comes across in different way in the history, and even erases Native American history because of the elevations of how Christopher Columbus' narrative elevates it, and on top of the indigenous erasure, which is a huge problem in the United States. Just to think about it, that about 80 to 90% of the American population knows little to nothing about Native American history of this area, much less about Mexico, Canada, and the Caribbean. So we are dealing with like a systemic issue, which is institutional racism, and at all levels.
Now, as far as the first question is that when you want to remove something, what do you replace it with? Have you guys had that conversation or those suggestions already ready when they say, okay, we're going to take this down, but what do you want to replace it with? What are some of the ideas that are floating around?
At least for the native communities here, Lenape, Taínos, Mexicas, I think there's like there's two tracks. One is definitely we need to see more representation of the Lenape history, both in the past and the present. Definitely also the Taíno community and the indigenous Caribbeans, also there needs to be some representation, and also to mend the history, because even within the North America, when we are talking about Indigenous Peoples Day, sometimes the Taíno community or the presence of the Taíno is also not known, And then, and definitely we have to think about it like how, this is more painful, but it's like how slavery or enslavement, of our people across the continent also connects to the African American community. So there are opportunity for conversations for different communities to decide what would that look like. Definitely we are not, as a community, I don't think we're there yet. So it will take some time for the Art Commission, the city, and even other public institutions and nonprofits sector to and grassroots to have that kind of like more in-depth conversations about what would that look like. But I know that the Art Commission and the Historic Commission, we were kind of thinking about some kind of plate there, but even that, what sort of history can be represented when the Italian American also is seeking to have a better representation of their heritage. It's also, it's something that it's going to be important to discuss, because definitely nobody wants to replace anyone, but it's also important to understand that we're in context of white supremacy and in context of indigenous erasure, especially in the city, that there's no representation of Native American other than just stereotypes. We have to think about it, how generous others are going to have to be in order to give a space for Native voices.
Before we go, there might be someone who's watching that says, you know what, I want to become a part of the movement, I want to get involved. How would they do that?
So currently we have a Facebook page. You can look it up as Indigenous Peoples Day Philly, and you can sign up to that. We also have a website, which is ipdphilly.org. We're every year since 2017, we've been doing an event, so people sign up to that event, and it's going to come up. We're going to organize an online event, so it's going to be modest in comparison to other years, but definitely an opportunity for people to learn and also to follow us.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today. Well, that's all we have for this episode of PhillyCAM Voices. Thank you for joining us. You can also watch the show on YouTube and Roku, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.